This includes a limit of solids of 250 milligrams per liter, total petroleum, which is your gasoline, and oils of 100 milligrams per liter. We recommend that you use an oil sock or some type of oil removal method and grit screening for any amount of cleaning water. This is not just to protect us. If you're discharging to a sanitary sewer clean out or to a mop sink or to a toilet and you pour in a bunch of grit, you best believe you're going to stop that customer's toilet up or you're going to plug their line, and then they're going to have an expensive call out Roto-Rooter, okay? So if you're going to discharge, do your best to do some dry cleanup methods prior to the wet method of cleaning up to get all that debris and sweep it up and put it in the trash. Then, after you use the oil sock and oil remover and the grit screening, you can discharge to the clean out, the facilities on site, mop sink, toilets. I particularly like the mop sink option because usually the mop sinks are come along with a grit receptor trap in them, so that's always a good option. Never, ever, 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 never, ever, 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 ever open a manhole. Manholes are not intended to be open because, believe it or not, underneath you may be a 6-foot pit that you can fall into and really hurt yourself, okay? A lot of people think that when they pop that open, it's just going to be this little teeny pipe, and you're going to get surprised, you know? And we have pictures of people falling into sanitary sewers. So it's not allowed. That is strictly prohibited. And you say, how did we get pictures of that? Believe it or not, we had a bank camera capture a picture of a guy trying to steal. This is when metals were really high. Remember, metals were really high and people were stealing the copper out of the street lights. Well, they were also stealing sanitary sewer manhole covers, okay? And the guy fell in the hole. So, which probably serves him right, you know? So never open a manhole. Over 100 and less than 1,000, you will need, this is whenever you get into the required level. Again, we always recommend that you screen out oil and grit, but you have to do it when you get over 100 gallons per day. Now, I got the question from somebody, they were like, well, is that 100 gallons per day per site, per 100 gallons a day per company, okay? You're an entity, whether you're operating multiple sites or whatever, okay? So and a permit will go to the company, okay? And then you're responsible for all those workers that you have at different sites and what they're doing, all right? So you should be removing the oil and screening the grit out, not only to protect the sanitary sewer, but again, also to protect your customers' private property. They have a private lateral that can be damaged. Over 1,000 gallons per day, you need to come in and see us, all right? And we'll give you a special use discharge permit. Now, what will you have to do to get that discharge permit? Well, we're going to need reassurance that you have proper pre-treatment methods in place. This does not mean that we're going to look at you and say you have to have an expensive piece of equipment in place. Just as Robert showed you earlier, there are some low-cost methods out there, and we're quite okay with those low-cost methods because the ultimate thing is to keep the oil and the grit out of the sewer. Most of the time, the heavy metals and the phosphates, we don't want you using phosphates, but most of the time that stuff will be caught up in the grit in the solid portion. So if you're getting that out, you're doing most of what you need to do. So we will be asking you when you come in for your permit, do you have best management practices? Have you trained your workers? What type of equipment do you have in order to capture the oil and grit? Those are the questions that we're going to be looking at. And that's for the first year of this program, since we're just starting this. We are doing what we call background sampling, which means that we are randomly sampling around throughout the county wherever we find somebody operating. We also are sampling in the sanitary sewer and at customer locations. If over the course of this first year we find that there's a problem, we will adjust our policy accordingly. But for the first year, we're not going to charge a permit fee, and we're going to just collect data and try and take a look at what's going on. Again, if you're going to discharge over 1,000 gallons per day, whether it's at one site or 5 sites, so that would be 5 sites at 200, for example. If you're going to do that as a company, okay, then come in and talk to us. Tell us what you're doing. Show us that you have best management practices. Show us that you have some equipment to capture this oil and grease, and we're going to give you a permit. It's just that simple. This is not an onerous task. This is just we need to know what you're doing out there and what you're putting in the sanitary sewer system. Always remember that there is a sanitary sewer and there is a storm drain, and never the two shall meet, okay? So that you always have to keep that in mind and make sure that you're discharging to the right one, all right? Is everybody good on that one? Here's my schematic. I hope it's legible from the back there, of what it looks like. Normally, you're going to find your sewer clean out within about 10 foot of the public right-of-way. 10 to 20 feet, it should be somewhere. So it's usually in the front yard, in other words, especially for anything built after 1970, okay? So you're going to be looking for those clean outs. There's one usually located near the public right-of-way, and then there's one usually located near the house, because one is intended to push waste toward the sanitary sewer, and one is intended to push waste toward the house. Whichever way Roto-Rooter or whoever the plumber is figures out the best way to clear the line, that's the one he's going to use. But you're just looking for that clean out, and here's a picture of what a clean out looks like. Long and short of it, please come by and see us before anything else can happen. Come by and see us. Come by and talk to us. Come by and obtain the permit for your company. We'll start issuing these permits after May 15th. So come by. I think my information is somewhere in all these handouts. And just come by and see us and talk to us so that we can get this worked out. One thing I did want to point out here on this one handout, it says a lot of yeses on there, and some of these yeses should be maybes for the sanitary sewer. So take a look at your handout there where you have your layout. And I say that with emphasis because if you're using strong chemicals or strong detergents, it may not go in the sanitary sewer. All right, that yes could quickly become a maybe. So you should be aware of that and pay special attention to that. If you're doing cleaning again with detergents, we like to encourage you to use the ones that do not contain phosphates, because what does phosphorus cause? Does anybody know? Because phosphate is just a form of phosphorus. Plant growth, that's right. It causes these major algae blooms. If large amounts of nitrogen, phosphorus, are discharged, it causes algae blooms. What happens then? Well, then you use up all the oxygen that's in the river, and you make it septic, and you kill all the fish. And you also make it not usable for humans, okay? That's it. Any questions, give us a call. Right there's the number. You want to jot it down, feel free to do so.